Good morning and welcome to the Careers Corner. Please could you introduce yourself?
Oh, good morning. My name's Joanne Richards and I'm an occupational therapist. I work in a hospital called the Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt Orthopaedic Hospital, which is based here in Shropshire.
Lovely. And please, what does your job involve, please?
Okay, so quite varied role. I work with inpatients and outpatients, and what that means is if I'm seeing an outpatient, they've been referred by one of our consultants, and at the moment I work predominantly in the rheumatology team. So patients that I see have a range of conditions, some within the autoimmune sort of umbrella, others sort of more diverse, but generally under that rheumatology umbrella. And consultants, GPs refer to me really if our patients are struggling with how their condition limits their daily function, so what they want to and need to do in their daily life, from brushing their teeth through to managing a day in a work environment. So very, very varied. I also see some inpatients, and those are our patients who've become a little more unwell with their condition and have needed to come into hospital for a bit more intensive treatment, and then it's a bit more of a rehab approach, so looking much more, I work sort of in a multidisciplinary team with physiotherapists, dietitians, and also our medics and nurses.
And what was your careers journey to get to this point, please?
Yeah, careers journey. So I'm old enough to remember doing O levels. I think it's GCSEs now. So O levels and A levels. At that point, I really wasn't sure where my career journey was going to take me, and I saw a lot of friends at the time go off to university, but I decided at the time that wasn't right for me, as I didn't really know where it was going to take me. So I worked for 6 years in local government, in an admin role, I suppose. I worked in a pay services department and in a benefits team, housing benefits team. And I don't regret any of those 6 years, because that gave me a really good grounding in communication, in just how you deal with the public. But I became aware that I wanted to do a bit more in my role. I really enjoyed the people contact, and so I explored at that point where I felt some of my skills would lie, and that's when I went on to train to be an occupational therapist. So that was 3 years at university. Although there are different routes into occupational therapy, not the traditional A-level university. I think there are now some apprenticeships offered, so you can work and train on the job. Those posts are limited, I'd probably say, but they are available. So yeah, pretty traditional, O levels, A levels, chunk of work experience, and then a university degree. So it's a Bachelor's of Science degree.
And do you need any particular qualification, skills or character traits to be successful?
Yeah, so I think you have to acknowledge that you're studying at degree level. So there has to be an ability to study, to be a critical thinker, to be able to evaluate. That doesn't have to be traditional A levels. It could be a BTEC in care, or it could be a number of different qualifications if you don't take the direct route from A levels. But I think in terms of coming out of your sixth form journey, you would be. I think a prospective college or university would want to see that you had a science base. Maybe psychology would be very welcome if you had psychology. But I would advise anybody interested to go to the Royal College of Occupational Therapists website, and you will have a whole raft of careers information there, which will give you much more insight into the role of an OT and also what you might want to do and what suits you in terms of your career path. Those are your sort of academic. I suppose in terms of personal skills, you will be working with people, and sometimes you'll be working with people who are in very troubling situations. So you need to have a degree of resilience, although I think you can gain that on your journey if it's something that you want to commit to. You've got to be quite dedicated. Working in the NHS is hard work, particularly at the moment. There's a lot of different challenges for us. So it has to be something that you're really passionate about. I'd say you need to be a people person, to enjoy the challenge of problem solving, and be quite self-motivated.
Brilliant. So could you describe a typical day as much as possible?
I'm sure that when people are asked this, the response is there is no typical day, and that's very much the case. However, a typical day will always involve patient contact, will always be essentially assessing a patient, understanding where their needs lie, working with them to formulate their treatment plan, which is always based around their goals, and then progressing that. So a typical day could be that first consultation with a patient, or it might be some follow-up just to see where we're going with the treatment. There are other things involved when you work in the NHS. It's not just about caring for patients. Well, for example, this afternoon I'm chairing a meeting of the rest of our occupational therapists in our trust to look at some of our professional issues. We always have a team meeting once a week. We also get involved in multidisciplinary team meetings where we're discussing service needs and also sort of learning from colleagues and looking at sort of broader issues within our teams. But yeah, I suppose a typical day is meeting patients, listening, assessing, establishing goals and working out treatment plans.
Okay. What are the parts you enjoy most about your job?
Oh, definitely patient contact. I've been really privileged in the 23 years I've been working the NHS to meet some really wonderful people, just a complete cross-section of the population, all with their own life stories and difficulties and challenges. So definitely the most rewarding thing is meeting a person and seeing them come through the end of their challenge, whatever that may be. I think there's a particular type of person that works in the NHS, so I really enjoy working with my colleagues. You have to have a little bit of fun when you work in the NHS, otherwise it can be quite gloomy, I suppose. So it's nice to see colleagues. I just enjoyed the challenge. It's something new, very rewarding role.
Brilliant. And what are the biggest challenges you feel you faced?
I think everybody knows the NHS has faced challenges for a number of years in terms of resources and monies available. I think there continue to be huge pressures in terms of what you want to achieve. So I suppose it's a competition really internally between what you want to achieve and what you're able to achieve with the resources and the time restraints, etc. So there is always the challenge of resources and the demands on your time. At the moment, honestly, the biggest challenge is changing our working practices because of the infection control measures around working with the coronavirus. So I hope within the next 2 years we see that resolving, but that's presenting a huge challenge at the moment.
Okay, and what advice would you give someone considering joining the profession?
Advice would be to really research the career. So if you can, and I know it's difficult to gain work experience, but to talk to individuals who are already working as an occupational therapist, do some online research. I've mentioned the Royal College of Occupational Therapy. I would suggest, if it's at all possible, to get some practical experience so that you really understand what it's like to work with people. Again, I acknowledge that's probably more difficult at the moment, but I think universities like to see perhaps some volunteering, maybe as simple as mentoring another pupil in your school who's got some challenges, or if you've got an elderly relative who needs some help and support, maybe demonstrate that you have the ability to engage with that person. So really demonstrating and to yourself that it's something you want to do, but also that you feel that you can demonstrate that you've got those people skills.
Okay, and who would be your role model?
Now, that's a really difficult one, as I can't say. I'd like to say it's somebody famous like Beyonce, but but it's going to be definitely the people I've met on my career journey so far who I have looked up to and thought that's the therapist I want to be. And I suppose I have thought about the traits of that person, and I think it's sort of determination, hard work, a sense of humour, a level of real career, professional courtesy. So yes, those sort of people that you feel are good leaders that inspire you and drive you to think that's how I want to be in my working role.
Fantastic. And finally, what advice would you give to your 15-year-old self?
To my 15-year-old self, I would say believe in yourself a little bit more. I think when you're young, I think you judge yourself based on what you see other people doing who are older. And I think you have to acknowledge that they've already gained a lot of experience that's shaped their capability. So I would say to my 15-year-old self, if you want to do it, try hard, commit to it, dedicate yourself, and you can achieve anything. Just because you feel you can't do it right now doesn't mean it's out of your grasp.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you.